Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So the name of the day, Joel Greenberg. I know a lot, not on everyone's tongue, at least if you're not a Republican right now worrying about your golden boy going down. But evidently Joel Greenberg is going to plead guilty to what looks like 6 charges, 6 felonies, one of them being the sex trafficking of a minor. That ain't good. But he was up for something like 31, 35 felony charges. So if he's pleading to just 6, there's a sweetheart deal here, and he is blaming and pointing upwards, and everybody thinks Matt Gaetz is the guy who's probably going to be what is being sung for. And here to share some thoughts on the whole Gaetz Greenberg sex. I hate to say scandal, because this is much worse than that. This is much worse. Anyway, that's why I've asked Max Burns to come talk with us. Max is a Democratic strategist and also a columnist over at the Daily Beast. Max, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me.
I can't get it out of my head how much worse this is than it's just sex trafficking. No, this is so much worse than that.
It is. It's expanded significantly from what we knew. My colleagues at the Daily Beast broke this story today that indicates Joel Greenberg is signing a cooperation agreement in exchange for a lighter sentence, and that he's agreed to cooperate with the government in naming the other men who were involved in this sex trafficking business. But the more we learn, the more insane it gets. There was a side investigation. What started all of this was Joel Greenberg and Matt Gaetz trying to mine Bitcoin on government computers, tripping a circuit breaker and getting caught, moving it to another office that they accidentally set on fire, and then hiring escorts for do-nothing government contracts. These are the people who talk about government responsibility and government ethics, and they are perhaps the most corrupt politicians we've seen in at least my lifetime.
Yeah, well, aren't they the party of family values?
I don't think they know what party they are anymore, as we see with Liz Cheney. But right now, the silence is deafening on Matt Gaetz. It does seem now increasingly certain that Greenberg will disclose information about Matt Gaetz, probably provide more detail on the payments Gaetz made to these escorts, one of them who was a child. And as fun as it is to enjoy Matt Gaetz's well-deserved downfall, we do have to remember that this is not a victimless crime. There was a child who was sexually assaulted and was trafficked to other men through Matt Gaetz. And that is a disgusting thing. That should be prosecuted fully. And the Republicans that have been silent on this wear that on their souls.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me that, this week you have the Republican leadership canceling Liz Cheney, but Matt Gaetz has been very, very silent on.
Yeah, and it just shows you the Republican Party is going through something right now that is would be fascinating to watch, were they not our partner party in Washington, who to some extent we still need them to be coherent and aware of what's going on in order to govern. But they're busy cutting the throats of people who are insufficiently loyal, and the people who are replacing them may soon find themselves on the chopping block as the party rushes to the right.
Yeah, it's insane. Now Thursday there was supposed to be a big letter that came out with a bunch of Republicans who were going to maybe start their own third party. I saw the ramp up to it. I didn't see much of it kind of fizzled on Thursday. It wasn't as climactic as I was hoping.
No, and that's because the sad truth of it is the majority of the Republican Party is wholly committed to MAGA and to Trumpism at all costs. They've shown they're perfectly willing to throw out longtime party supporters, powerful supporters. And the shame of it is that there's a real opportunity here for the Republican Party to look at what happened in 2020, do some soul searching, and come back as a functional conservative party. And instead, they have chosen to wage an all-out war on democracy, on voters, and on themselves.
Yeah, I know a couple of days ago, everyone was all up in arms that the woman who heads up the Heritage Foundation was bragging about how easy it was to pass the voter suppression laws that they wanted in places like Georgia. And I said, look, the reality is there's nothing shocking about her statement. This is what these groups have been doing for decades. They've got a direct line, a main line right into the Republican soul, and because it's who they are. They basically just do their homework for them, so it's not surprising to me.
They do. And this is a great reason to caution my Democratic and progressive friends who have been rallying to some extent around Liz Cheney. It is a very good sign that Liz Cheney has published an op-ed and stood up for democracy and said that Donald Trump does not respect democracy. Great. But the Republican Party is basically divided into two groups without a difference. One who believes the election was stolen and wants to suppress your vote. The other that doesn't believe the election was stolen and wants to suppress your vote. So these are not our friends just because they've made the bare minimum of respecting the government they claim to serve.
And not beyond that. I mean, you want to raise your taxes and want to give corporate America more and expand on the massive inequality that's going on, not invest in our infrastructure, all of that stuff, all of the bad policies, all of the horrible things that gave us the rise of Donald Trump. That's what both sides stand for.
Yep. And even as the Republican Party sort of eats itself in Washington, state parties around the country are chugging forward. They're passing voter suppression laws like we've never seen before. They're punishing schools, as was the case in Tennessee this week. Republicans in Tennessee passed a law essentially stripping funding from any school that teaches that systemic racism exists. And that is where we are at. And if we focus on this circus in Washington, we're not taking action on these things where Republicans are actually making things worse for everyone.
No, there's been a bunch of stories around the fact that they've drilled down into school boards. The I hate to say conservative because they're not conservative. The crazy movement seems to be moving its way down into places like school boards, like your local dog catcher, and it's a frightening kind of prospect that they have this kind of money and this kind of organization.
And this is where the money is going. When we talk about ALEC, the group that promotes state legislation for Republicans, that they basically slap their name on and it's already written. So you see 50 identical bills from Republicans across the country. They're not worried about Congress. They know where the money is, and that's in states. That's where Democrats are going to have to pick up their fight. So unless Liz Cheney is willing to help fight some of this gerrymandering and stand up for schools, I'm not especially interested in being her friend.
Yeah, no, I said from the beginning, I care less today than I did yesterday about Liz Cheney, and I didn't care about her at all yesterday. The blind squirrel found the nut. Good on her this one time. She's still the spawn of Darth Cheney, and there's part of me that goes, he's behind a lot of this stuff. He gets the daily briefings. He knows what's going on. I'm sure he knows what's coming down the road, and it doesn't look good for the Trumpkins and the ilk because of all the things from that could come out from this 1-6 commission and all of the crimes and all of the things that we're seeing with Gaetz and Greenberg and the rest of them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think Liz Cheney's main benefit here is she has, and I hate to say it, but one of the great Republican strategists on her side in the form of her father, a man who has accurately predicted where the Republican Party is going for his entire career. And if the Cheneys are cutting bait on Trump, that tells me the people buying in on the dip, like Elise Stefanik, who replaced her in the House, in House leadership, are buying into something that is not going to return the investment they hope.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting because, I tweeted out today that, get ready for Romney Cheney 2024 because you're going to have this split. And someone said, no, Mitt Romney's never going to run for president. And Liz Cheney already said she's not going to run. I go, yeah, just wait.
Yeah, political plants grow in the shade, as Thomas Jefferson said.
Yeah. So, so any chance this happens? Because it looks like the split is going to happen. I don't think there's going to be a third party. I don't think there are enough Republicans to do that. I think the fight is going to be for the soul and what comes out of this commission and, well, what charges end up against dear leader.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think if there was a time for a third party, it would have been during 2020. I think there were a lot of talks about trying to launch that, and they just didn't have the critical mass. Because I think what a lot of never Trump Republicans who have been very principled in resisting Trump struggle to admit is that there are just not that many of them. The Republican Party is the party of Donald Trump, and they just don't have the popular support to really push against it. So what happens now is what becomes of a party that has no brakes and no one to say they've gone too far. And they're just going to run right off the cliff, as we're already seeing.
Yeah, no, I mean, when Ron DeSantis and Josh Hawley are your bench, that's scary.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And now the new normal of Ron DeSantis saying he might, if Donald Trump is indicted in New York, he might refuse to extradite him from Florida. So now the standard for loyalty in the Republican Party is disregard of the law in all cases. So that's an alarming thing to be proud to say in public.
But again, this is where the right-wing media machine comes into this. This is where that echo chamber comes into all this, because no matter what facts are, they're going to spin it however they want. We're watching it right now, Max. They're spinning what happened on January 6th. And recasting those traitors, those insurrectionists, whatever words you want to use, they're recasting them as patriots and trying to recreate this. Well, it wasn't that bad. It was like any other day. No, these were people who were trying to overthrow our country.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that effort to normalize this and minimize this started as the attack on the Capitol was ongoing. I mean, this was something that Republicans immediately recognized was a problem, and they're trying to tell Americans, as they did for 4 years, don't trust your lying eyes. I mean, we had a Republican today describe the January 6th insurrection, in which multiple people were killed, as just a normal tourist visit to the Capitol. That is a level of unreality that we cannot negotiate with and cannot bring back. That has to be contained and carefully monitored.
No, I agree. And, it's one of those things where, because I've been talking about that quote for the last 2 days, because, every day someone's defecating on the floor of the Capitol. Every day, 150 police officers are beaten. Every day it happens. It's just a normal day. Every day someone's urinating on a desk or smashing the windows there at the Capitol. Every day. It happens all the time.
Yeah. Setting fire to Senate desks, stealing podiums. I witnessed that every day when I was working on the Hill.
So the question is, with this commission that's now being put together, is this going to matter? Is it going to matter for the average Trumpkin who's the true believer? Is it going to matter to the people who believe that the election was stolen? Is it going to matter to them at all?
No, not one bit. And quite frankly, Rick, I am done trying to persuade and bring around MAGA Trump Republicans. I think Joe Biden made a very earnest effort during the campaign to reach out to Republicans and people who were disaffected and maybe wanted to give Trump a chance. And in return, they attempted to kill members of Congress and overturn the election. What the January 6th Commission is going to be important for is understanding where we need to shore up our protections for democracy. And that's going to be on the Attorney General and the White House to enact policies that actually protect Congress and the government from being so easily deposed again.
Yeah, and we need to lock the people up who were responsible, and not just the idiots who did it, not just the people who were dumping on the floor and the people who encouraged them and the people who funded them. And that's where for me, I said the day it happened. For me, I want to know who funded this. I want to know the moneyed interests behind it. I want to lock up those billionaires and those big corporate special interests who funded this stuff and pushed this stuff down our throats. I want them. We'll see if that happens. Lastly, I wanted to get your thoughts. New York Times had a story today. I thought kind of cute. I'm not sure if it's an attack, but evidently beneath Joe Biden's folksy demeanor is a short fuse and an obsession with detail. Is that a bad thing?
That must seem very strange after the last 4 years to have any interest in detail at all. And no, I think the story is completely accurate. Yeah, I've had the privilege of working with then Senator Biden briefly in my past life in human rights. And he is a person who likes detail, who likes to fully understand an issue, says repeatedly, I want to know what I'm selling to the American people. He needs to believe that what he's saying is correct and right. Joe Biden's not just going to go out and say whatever moves a poll, because he understands voters are aware of that tactic and they don't like it. This is a guy who cares deeply about doing what's right. And if you come to him unprepared, he's going to shout at you.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a little incentive. But it has a short fuse, though, Max. Short fuse. And I said that. I'm watching it. I'm going, as opposed to the last guy who would, then send his minions after you. And I'm confused.
Well, I think in terms of things where you're allowed to have a short fuse, the presidency is certainly one of them. I think we're finally getting back to someone who appreciates the stakes and how important this is and the ability to help or hurt great many people if you're right or wrong. And he is determined to be as right as possible, as often as possible.
Yeah.
That's, if anything, a refreshing change from what we've been talking about the past few years.
No, and for me, the fact that he shows up every day, he's doing the job. And that's how he's going to do well in 2022. If we could just get an infrastructure bill moved forward, get people back to work, get the economy roaring again, I think 2022 will take care of itself.
As do I. I think we're moving fast. I think Biden is aware now that he has an infrastructure plan that is very popular, not only among Democrats and independents, but about 47% of Republican voters. And that, more than anything else, is what terrifies the Republicans, because there is no way they have found so far to message against that. And if 47% of Republicans like Joe Biden, 2022 is going to be very interesting.
No, well, they have found a way. Well, we can't raise taxes. We can't pay for it. Other than we're going to make you pay for, all kinds of, user fees and mileage taxes and all that stuff. So, yeah, that's their view. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. The tax and spend Republicans.
There they are. Max, I appreciate the time. Keep up the great work there at the Daily Beast. Love to have you back again sometime real soon.
Thanks so much.
Good stuff, Max Burns. Make sure you check out his work over at the Daily Beast. We'll get links out on social media how you can do that. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.